how do diverse societies, I mean, really diverse ones, actually manage to live together in peace? It's a question we're still wrestling with, isn't it?
Absolutely. Conflict often seems like the default setting, historically speaking.
Exactly. But what if I told you there was this ancient blueprint, something forged way back in the middle of chaos that offered a pretty surprising path to building genuine pluralism?
That's what we're digging into today, right?
Mm.
This fascinating document.
Yes, the Charter of Medina. And for this deep dive, we've pulled from some really compelling sources, academic articles, historical analyses, to sort of unpack its core ideas and figure out why it still feels so relevant.
It's a great topic.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Imagine a city, this is back in the 7th century. It's just riddled with civil strife. You've got different tribes, different faiths.
Pagan Arabs, Jewish communities, a small but growing Muslim group.
Right, all living side by side, but often, at each other's throats. Apparently, it had seen almost 100 years of fighting, a real powder keg.
Sounds familiar, unfortunately.
It does. But then out of this chaos comes this document, way ahead of its time, designed to unite everyone under a common banner of peace, mutual respect. That's the charter we're talking about.
And a truly remarkable thing here, I think, is how it happened. This wasn't achieved through, conquest or force.
No.
It was a civic agreement, a pact.
Huh.
Which makes you wonder, doesn't it? How did they manage to create this kind of blueprint for coexistence that, frankly, still resonates today?
Yeah, how did they do it? Our sources tell us the story really kicks off when Prophet Muhammad migrates to Medina. It was called Yathrib back then in the 7th century.
And one of the first things he did, interestingly, was commission a census.
Yeah, and the numbers revealed just how complex things were. You had about, 45% pagan Arabs?
Around that, yes. And about 40% Jewish tribes, and maybe only 15% Muslims initially.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just diverse, it was deeply fractured.
A really challenging environment to walk into.
Precisely. And it's into this charged atmosphere that the Charter of Medina, sometimes called the Covenant or Constitution, emerges.
Okay, so what was it exactly?
Well, it's a document with around 50 articles. And many historians, they see it as perhaps the first written constitution of its kind.
Predating the Magna Carta.
By almost 6 centuries, yeah. Its main goal was pretty revolutionary for the time, to lay out a vision for a society where people from totally different backgrounds, faith, tribe, tradition, could actually live together with mutual respect.
So, a peaceful solution to all that fighting.
A radical one, really. Trying to build something new out of the existing divisions.
So how do you actually do that? Go from a city tearing itself apart to, a unified community? What was the Charter's first big move?
I think the most fundamental thing, the real game changer, was how it redefined identity. Instead of focusing only on tribe or religion.
Which were the main dividers.
Exactly. It created this new, overarching civic identity.
Okay, tell me more. What did that look like in practice?
Well, the Charter, particularly Article 1, according to our sources, recognized all the signatories, Muslims, like the Muhajirun who migrated, and the Ansar who helped them, various clans like Ayos and Khazraj, and the different Jewish tribes. It recognized them all as part of one single political community, one ummah in Medina.
An ummah, but not purely religious in this context.
No, that's the key. It was political, civic, distinct from all other people outside this agreement. It was a huge shift, moving loyalty away from just your tribe to this new kind of shared political unity.
A kind of early citizenship.
You could definitely see it that way, offering equal recognition to all people within the pact. And that really stands out compared to, say, the Code of Hammurabi or Roman law, which often didn't grant equal rights across different groups. Now, scholars do debate exactly what to call it. Is it a full constitution, or, as some like Rabbi Alan Meller suggests, maybe more like the American Articles of Confederation, dealing mainly with intertribal stuff, maybe even compiled from several treaties over time.
But the impact was huge, regardless of the label.
Oh, absolutely profound. It laid the groundwork for everything else.
That idea of an identity built on shared belonging, not just shared belief, that feels incredibly relevant. But okay, if the goal was unity, how did they handle the diversity? How did they integrate people without just erasing their differences?
This is where that brilliant concept comes in what some call unity without uniformity, or integration without assimilation.
Right.
The Charter didn't try to make everyone the same. In fact, one of the most striking articles, Article 25, explicitly states something like, the Jews have their religion and the Muslims have theirs.
Wow, spelled out just like that.
Pretty much. It wasn't just saying we tolerate you. It was an explicit guarantee of their right to practice their own faith, follow their own customs, while still being full members of this shared political community.
That's quite specific.
It is, and it connects directly to that famous Quranic principle, there is no compulsion in religion. The charter really put that into practice. Islam wasn't forced on anyone in Medina.
So religious freedom was baked in from the start. But what about physical safety? In a place with such a history of violence, how did the charter create a sense of security for everyone?
Great question. It did that by declaring the city itself, Medina, a sanctuary, a protected space for everyone who signed the document.
A sanctuary, how did that work?
Article 39, our sources note, says something to the effect of, the valley of Yathrib, Medina, is a haram, a sanctuary for the people of this document.
Haram, like sacred or forbidden.
Exactly. It established Medina as this neutral zone where violence, bloodshed, the old tribal feuds, those were strictly prohibited within the city limits. It was a binding social contract cutting across all religious and tribal lines.
So inside Medina, different rules applied. Peace was the law.
Precisely. And what's really interesting is that Article 47 suggests this security wasn't just inside the city. It protected signatories outside Medina, too. It shows real foresight about creating stable civil cohesion.
That's a powerful idea, declaring the whole city basically a safe zone where the old conflicts had to stop. A huge commitment. But okay, what about threats from outside Medina? Did this new Ummah have a plan for that, a shared defense?
Oh, definitely. That was a crucial part of the agreement. The charter wasn't just about internal peace. It explicitly created a collective responsibility for defense.
So everyone had to pitch in if the city was attacked.
Yes, all groups were obligated to defend against external threats together. And importantly, they couldn't help an outside enemy against any signatory of the charter.
Makes sense. A mutual defense pact.
Exactly. Articles 37, 43, 44, they talk about mutual assistance, friendly counsel, and sincere behavior, but also warn against breaking the agreement. There's even a specific mention, Article 16, I believe, that Jews would get help from Muslims and their enemies wouldn't be aided against them.
So it wasn't just don't fight each other, it was also protect each other.
Yes, and more than that, it proactively encouraged mutual goodwill and advancement of peace. Article 45 apparently said that if Jews or Muslims called on each other to make peace, they had to respond positively.
Wow. So pursuing peace became a shared duty.
A moral and a legal obligation for everyone in the pact. It's quite remarkable, the level of detail and foresight.
It really is incredible to think about. So if these principles were so central, how did Prophet Muhammad's own leadership play into this? Did he reinforce it? And did this charter actually influence things beyond Medina?
Well, the sources really emphasize that Prophet Muhammad, as the head of state in Medina, led by example, he personally upheld the charter's articles, setting a standard for sincerity and justice.
So it wasn't just words on paper.
No, he lived it. And it's also important to remember, as our sources point out, that these principles weren't created in a vacuum. They were deeply rooted in Quranic teachings.
You mentioned no compulsion in religion earlier.
Right. And there's also that verse, Quran 49.15, which speaks about humanity being created from male and female, made into tribes and nations so that you may know one another, and that the most honorable in God's sight is the most righteous. That theological underpinning definitely reinforces the charter's vision of unity across differences.
Okay, so it had strong leadership and deep roots. Did this model spread? Did it influence how Muslims interacted with other groups later on?
It absolutely seems to have. The original Covenant of Medina appears to have profoundly influenced later generations of Muslims, so much so that they extended similar kinds of agreements and protections to Christian communities.
Really? Covenants with Christians based on this model?
Yes. Our sources mention the existence of maybe 6 different versions of such covenants with various Christian groups. It's something John Morrow explores in his book, The Covenants of the Prophet Muhammad with the Christians of the World. It's fascinating history that's often overlooked.
And what was the impact of those later covenants?
Well, one striking consequence mentioned is that Christian communities living under Muslim rule, later on, actually came to expect a level of fairness and protection, similar to what the Jewish community had initially received in Medina.
An expectation based on precedent.
Exactly. Which, as the source notes, wasn't necessarily the kind of expectation Jewish communities typically had in, say, medieval Christian Europe. It shows the lasting power of that original Medinan framework.
So bringing this all together, after this deep dive into a document from the 7th century, why should you, listening now, care? What does this ancient blueprint offer us today in our own pretty divided world.
I think it's incredibly relevant, especially when you look at current tensions between Muslims, Jews, Christians. The Charter offers a potential model, a path to avoid the kind of misunderstanding that plagues so much of our discourse.
A different way of thinking about coexistence.
Yes. There's a personal story from one source, Sean William White, who traveled through Iran, Turkey, northern Iraq back in 2009. And he talks about experiencing this incredible hospitality and acceptance, totally different from media portrayals. He felt that the Charter's core values, unity, respect, tolerance, love, they still exist amongst the people.
That's powerful.
It really is. And the Charter itself stands as this historical proof that Islam, at its foundation, rejected compulsion in religion, that it valued mediation to resolve conflicts. You even see echoes today. Think about that 2019 quote from Bahrain's foreign minister, Khalid bin Ahmed Al Khalifa.
What did he say?
He said, Israel is part of this heritage of this whole region historically, so the Jewish people have a place among us. That sentiment, that acknowledgement of shared history and place, feels very much in the spirit of the Charter.
It's a perspective you don't always hear. So, as we wrap up, what stands out most to you about this ancient blueprint? For me, this deep dive really highlights that building a tolerant, pluralistic society, it's not some new modern challenge. This idea of an ummah, a community built on acceptance and unity, not division, they actually put it into practice centuries ago.
That's the crucial takeaway, isn't it? And it leaves us with a really important question. If this kind of high-minded pluralism, this commitment to shared citizenship and mutual respect was achievable back then, in a 7th century Arabian city rife with conflict, achieved through reason, tolerance, agreement, not just force. What does that suggest about the potential for peace and understanding in our own incredibly diverse world today?